So welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my tomatoes and how I care for them to get a really good crop, and in particular trying to stop my tomato plants from getting horrid blight, which does sometimes happen, all depending what the weather is like. Now if you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment and also my home kitchen. So I'm going to tell you about some of the ways I look after my tomatoes, and I will be featuring blight quite heavily because it is something that's a really big concern to a lot of people during the course of the growing season. Now, one of the really important things that you must do with your tomato plants is you must feed them. So whatever feed you choose, every couple of weeks at least, you must feed them and keep them well watered, especially if they're in pots, because they can dry out really quickly. And once those fruits start to form on the tomatoes, they will start to suck the water up and need more water. So now with side shoots, you need to be removing the side shoots. So let's look for a side shoot. I'm sure I've got some. So we've got a little side shoot there. So what you're looking for, as the stem grows up through the middle, anything that's growing between the main stalk and a leaf needs to be removed, and that is one of them. So you've got, if I hold that up so you can see it, main stalk, leaf, and that side shoot there, that comes out. Now when you're getting close towards the top of the plant, make sure you don't nip the top out. So you remove the side shoots for a couple of reasons. One is you're trying to promote the tomatoes to grow, and two, you don't want blight to attack your plants. So if you don't remove the side shoots and it becomes very bushy, you'll get two things will happen. Your plants will struggle to produce tomatoes because they're so busy producing the leaves, and also you are more at risk of getting blight because the air isn't going to go around the tomatoes very well. You also need to be tying your tomatoes up. As you can see, I've got stakes here. They're growing incredibly quickly. It almost seems like every day or every couple of days I have to tie it up a little bit more to keep it in check on my cane, because they are just growing at such a quick rate of knots at the moment. So something I do to try and stop blight is I always keep my tomatoes in a row, like you can see here. So I never plant them in blocks to create really good airflow. So I plant them in blocks, in rows like this, not in blocks, so the air can get round them. I remove the leaves, the side shoots, so they don't get too bushy. Something else that I do is the very low leaves, I'm actually nipping a couple off now. I've taken a couple off there. I'm not taking lots off the bottom, just the very low ones initially. Blight, if you don't know, is something that's present in the soil. It's part of the ecosystem. It's everywhere. You can't get rid of it, but what makes it worse is certain weather conditions. So hot and humid is basically the weather conditions when it's more likely to happen. I register for something called Blight Watch. I will put a link in the description if you want to do it too, so you'll know if it starts to become more prevalent in your area. It just means you just need to take a little bit of extra care and look after your plants a little bit more. The other thing I do is, as the plants grow and each truss of fruit forms, so for example, they're not ready for this yet, but just say this little truss here had formed tomatoes on it. What I would then do is I would remove the leaves below that truss of fruit. I'm not doing that now because that isn't formed, and as each truss forms, I will remove the leaves below each truss, and that does a couple of things. That helps you not get blight because you've got more air going around your tomatoes, and also it helps the tomatoes ripen more quickly as well. You know, sometimes you see really bushy tomatoes on some of the online groups, and they're like, why am I not getting tomatoes? Why are my tomatoes not ripening? It's usually because they've not been taking their side shoots out, or they've not been removing these bottom leaves, because it helps with the plants forming and also with them ripening as well. Something else you can do with blight is to mulch around the bottom of your plant, because what it is, it's the splashback from the soil that splashes back, which can cause it, which is, you know, mulching stops the stuff splashing up. If you take the bottom leaves off as they form, that stops it. Another thing that I do, I always keep my tomatoes in a really hot sunny spot. That also helps as well. So this part of my garden, I know, is like a sun trap. So if you ever get blight, it's really helped when the sun does come out, it kind of like kills it off, so it's less likely for it to be as bad. Whereas if you kept them in a not very, apart from the fact that they'd struggle to ripen if they weren't in a nice sunny spot, it actually helps with a little bit of blight prevention or lessening it and making it not quite so bad. Something else some people do is you can buy some products. Some are more eco-friendly than others, so there are some products on the market which you can do, and you can also buy blight resistant varieties if you're particularly concerned about blight. You've had a lot of it in the past. I think Crimson Crush might be one of them, but you can do a bit of research and just Google it. I don't, I like a variety, so I just take my chances, and the prevention methods that I use pretty much do work for me. If I've got a plant that I think is really bad, personally I'll just pull the whole plant out. I don't want it affecting the rest of them, is what I do. Or I'll take individual leaves off. If I see a leaf that looks like it might have a little bit of blight on it, I'll just take the leaf off and hope that will cure it. It's once it gets onto the stem, that's when you've probably pretty much lost your tomatoes. And if you get it early in the season, it's far more detrimental than later in the season. Later in the season, to be honest, most people get a little bit, so don't get too het up about it. And it doesn't affect the fruits as bad. It's early blight that's the really, really bad one. So I'd love to know what everyone else is doing with their tomatoes and how they're growing at the moment. Any top tips you've got to look after your plants? Something else I do is Epsom Salts. Now I do this for a couple of reasons. It's a really good feed because it's high in magnesium, and also I think it makes the tomatoes taste nicer. So every few weeks, rather than I alternate the feeds, so I use my Tomatorite or a bulk feed. I've also got worm tea, so I put a bit of that on. But every few weeks I just put a little tiny scoop just at the base of the plants. I just shake it around just like that, and I find that really helps. Something else I will be doing that I think improves the flavour of my tomatoes is I put some basil plants around. Now my basil plants are still growing at the moment. There's still seeds in the little pots, but I find putting basil in and around improves the flavour of my tomatoes as well, and also is a really nice accompaniment to your dishes as well. So I really hope this has helped you and inspired you to start growing some tomatoes if you're not already. I'm sure you can pick some up in some garden centres if you've not started them off from seed, and I'd love to know what everyone else is doing and how their plants are progressing.